see if it... So here we are again, one more time with Wealand and Monica Stocker. And I'm the author of El Blog para Aprender Inglés. And Craig has a wonderful website, Mansión del Inglés, that I think everybody knows. And what else? Tell us about yourself.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Yes, we have a website called mansioningles.com and also a podcast that can be found at inglespodcast.com, which is every week, every Sunday, and it will help you improve your English. So if you'd like to visit those two places, you'll find some free material.
So, okay, so what's the topic for today?
Today, we're going to try to help you with some tips and advice about fluency. So you obviously have a reasonable level of English. You've been studying English for a long time. What Monica and I would like to do for the next half an hour or hour is to help you take your fluency to the next level by giving you some useful tips and advice on what you can do yourself to speak English more fluently. So that's the idea.
And also, we also have an idea of if you want to participate, I am going to put on the chat, I think, a link. Well, this is the link, but I think I have to put it on the chat. Let me see. Here. Oh, hello, Gemma. As always.
Hi, Gemma.
Here, okay. Maybe Gemma later wants to come in. I don't know if it's possible that she joins and she practice her fluency with us, no? Let me see if I can...
Gemma, do you want to come in and speak with us now before everybody arrives? You can come in and chat with us now.
Yeah, this is... Let me take out the... Well, okay, so I just pasted the link so that you are able to come in on the chat. So let me see. This is gone. Okay, this is gone. So the first thing I want to say about fluency is that this is something you have to really think about when your level is, I would say, between B2 and C1. I don't know if Craig agrees with this, but sometimes people come to me and they say, I want to be fluent, and they are beginners. If you have a level on A2 or low intermediate, like B1, it is very difficult to be fluent because you still don't have enough vocabulary to be fluent. It's just as simple as that. So don't get desperate if you're not fluent when you have a B1 level, for example, because you need to build it up and it takes time, no? So that's the first thing I want to say. What do you think about this, Craig?
Oh, I agree. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Obviously, you have to have a certain level of English before you start working on your fluency. And I'm probably going to say this more than once, but we all speak at different paces, different speeds. So some people speak naturally slowly, and some people speak very quickly, even in their native language. They're speaking really quickly. That's because of their personality. So when you're learning a second language, then you really can control how fast you speak. But you need, as Monica said, the basic grammar in place, and you need a reasonably wide vocabulary before you start working on your fluency. So I second what you say, Monica, probably, B2 or maybe even C1 level to get the fluency.
And also,
really.
There's another comment I want to make, and it is that there's a decision you have to make at the beginning when you start speaking. And many times, if you want to be fluent, you're going to make many mistakes. And so sometimes it's not too okay to be fluent because you want more precision in the language. And if you want precision, sometimes you have to think and you have to wait until you come up with the right word, right? So that means that you're not very fluent. So there's a balance, there has to be a balance. And this you can only get when you have more also precision in the language. I mean, you can be more fluent in a, let's say, in a nice way, because you can be fluent in a bad way, that just speaking and speaking and making many mistakes. But you have to see the situation. I think it's very important to take into account what is the situation. Am I just practicing? Am I going to pass a test? Am I going to a job interview? So, for example, for a job interview, you need to have precision in the language. But if you're just talking to some native friends, it doesn't really matter. You just make mistakes, and maybe they are never going to correct your mistakes, but you want to keep the conversation going, you shouldn't worry too much. No, so I would say that there is different context, and you have to take that also into consideration. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. And I'll add something to what Monica's just said, and that's that sometimes students ask me what's more important, fluency or accuracy. There's that balance between how accurate your English is and how fluently you speak. And I think it's important when you get into the intermediate, upper intermediate, and higher levels that you work on both at the same time, because it's not good to be very fluent and very inaccurate. And it's also difficult for the listener when you're very, very accurate, not making any mistakes, but you're speaking very slowly and constantly translating from Spanish maybe, or just being very, very nervous about making a mistake. So there's a balance that has to be struck. You have to find a balance between the fluency and the accuracy in English.
Okay. I wanted to say hi to Fatima. And
hi, Fatima.
Emma, we already said hi to Emma. Okay, so let's see. So we'll start with some advice. So for me, the first one, learn new words in sentences. It's very obvious, but sometimes people don't think about this. Why do I say learn new words in sentences? Because when you're going to speak, you need to use a sentence always. So if you learn the word, for example, oak is I always put this word as an example because it's difficult to remember. Oak means roble. So if I say, okay, oak, but then I want to use the word oak, then I say, well, how do I use this word? So you start thinking and you're not fluent. You need to know how to use it. For example, my father planted an oak and it's a very nice tree now after many years, okay? Something like that, some kind of context with the word, not just the word, loose words, okay? So, Gemma is saying, I believe that everyone has their own time and you must not force your speaking. Yes.
Unless, Gemma, if you're speaking really slowly, that there's an expression to put a strain on the listener. That's one of the things they give to Cambridge examiners when they're doing speaking tests. If the speaker is putting a strain on the listener, that means the listener really has to make an effort. The listener really has to try to follow what the speaker's saying. So yes, everybody has their own way of speaking, but also you have to be aware, you have to be conscious of the listener and make it easy for them to understand you. So there's that too. You have to be considerate of the listener.
Okay, I'll go back to learn new words in sentences. What do you think about this? What is your experience about learning vocabulary?
Yep, I think you should constantly work on widening your vocabulary to have as wide a vocabulary as possible. This afternoon, I was checking a student's writing and he used the word cause. He was speaking about the environment and pollution and he said, the cause, and he constantly repeated the same word. Well, there are other words he could have used. He could say the reason for, and other words that amplify his vocabulary. And it's the same with speaking. Writing's very similar with speaking in the respect of making your vocabulary wider and using different words and constantly expanding the way you speak. So different expressions, idioms, phrasal verbs, all kinds of language to make your vocabulary wider and more interesting is a good thing. So constantly work on learning new words.
Okay, number 2, practice summarizing short stories and then reading them aloud. This is the technique I use with my students. Usually I ask them to read a story, or maybe only one page. You don't even need to read a story because maybe it's too long. Just one page, just summarize it and read it aloud, because this is something that we constantly do. You know, you are thinking, and now I have to tell Craig about what happened to me yesterday when I was cooking and all that. We're always telling stories. So if I struggle with the vocabulary, that means that I'm not fluent, because I don't know the word pan, I don't know the word oven, I don't know the word dough, all these words related to cooking, for example. But if you start writing short stories, you increase your vocabulary and you practice at the same time using these stories, you know, as a way of gaining fluency, because you need to have like sentences that describe the story, no? And that's why this is a good technique. And also, another thing, to read aloud. To read aloud is very important, because then you can practice with your pronunciation. Pronunciation is so important, because if you cannot pronounce a word, the listener suffers a lot of a strain, like Craig just said, because he said, what did you say? So you have to just practice with speaking aloud. Speaking aloud is the best way if you have somebody to listen to you, and even if you don't have anybody to listen to you, okay? Because it's not about reading, it's not about doing grammar exercise. Fluency is always about listening and speaking, listening and speaking. Okay, what is your take on this?
Yeah, it's not something I've used very much with my students. I don't tend to use short stories with the students to improve fluency, but I agree that it's definitely important to speak as often as you can. And if there's no one you can speak to, do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? Just speak to anyone or anything, even if you're using the mirror. And we'll speak about this in detail a bit later, but you could also speak to your mobile phone. And what's really good for pronunciation as well as fluency is speaking to these intelligent devices like the Amazon, the lady. I'm not going to say her name, because if you have one of these next to your computer, it's going to start speaking. But the Amazon lady in the tube who speaks to you, or the Google Voice, or Siri on Apple devices, all of these intelligent computers that will listen to your English and speak back to you. So you can ask questions, and if your pronunciation is good, it will understand you and reply. So you can have a conversation with an intelligent device like that.
that reminds me of an anecdote. I'll tell you later. You want to say hi to someone?
No, I just wanted to add one more thing connected to what you said about short stories, because you reminded me of something called Rojergerian Listening, which I do with my students. And what that is that you listen to someone and then you summarize what they've said back to them. And I do that very often in Spanish, just to make sure I've understood what the person said. So you use expressions like, so what you're saying is, and then you summarize what the person's just told you. Or what you mean is, or if I understand you correctly, you're saying that, and then you paraphrase what someone's just told you. That's good for fluency, but it's also very, very good to make sure that you've understood what the person said and that it's clear to you.
And I was thinking, do you have a satellite? I think British people call it the GPS, the satellite navigator, in your car.
In the car, well, I use the phone. I use my mobile phone in the car. Phone. Yeah.
But sometimes I remember
it speaks to you.
with my husband. Yeah, it speaks to you. And with my husband, sometimes when he had a satellite navigator, you had to tell the address, and because he has a heavy accent, sometimes the satellite navigator
didn't understand it.
And then I thought, whoa, this is good for training, because I don't know if it didn't understand or also the street didn't exist, because sometimes the street doesn't exist. It's not. It does exist, but it's not contemplated. It's not included in the map that the satellite has. So he started saying, this satellite navigator doesn't know anything. Again, did you say, I remember the answer, did you say calle Terramolinos 4? No, I didn't say that. I said calle, I don't know, Tierra de Mul, and repeated. So this is another device you can practice with.
I had the opposite experience, because on the mobile phone I have, the woman who's pronouncing the Spanish street names is American, and her pronunciation is terrible because she's reading the Spanish pronunciation. So sometimes I don't understand her way of pronouncing Spanish street names. So it's the opposite situation.
No,
it's confusing.
It's a robot, and the robot reads with the different, let's say they just read sounds. And so when they get to a Spanish word, they pronounce it like in English. And it sounds ridiculous. Sometimes I say, what kind of street is that? Funny. Let's go to, this is similar to, I think, to the one before, because I was saying that it's important to read aloud. And
audio books are very good for listening. That's definitely true.
Very, very good. I always use audiobooks, because not only books, audiobooks, because then you listen and then you repeat and then you listen and repeat, because you have there the text, you have the sound, you have the context, and then you can try to replicate what you're saying. And well, if you don't have anybody to correct you, at least you have a reference with the sound, because if you don't read an audiobook, it's just a normal book, you don't have the sound. So you probably, if you read aloud, you're not going to know the real sound. But at least with the audiobook, you can say, okay, I think it's similar to that. So and I really recommend graded readers. So graded readers are all kinds of books that you can find. You can find them on YouTube now, because some people have recorded these books, and you just put, like, for example, level 4. That would be a B1, B2. Level 4, a classic story. Perfect. You go page by page and you read it aloud, and then you repeat and repeat and repeat exactly what the book says. And you learn the sentence, you learn everything in context, and I think it's a very nice exercise.
It is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a complete book. Any audio that has a tape script is useful. So you can go onto YouTube and listen to a TED talk, and if you turn on the captions on YouTube, then you get the text of what the person's saying. So you can compare the audio with what you're reading. And I think you're going to speak soon, Monica, about connected speech. It's really powerful for seeing how the pronunciation of words are in English, repeating after the person, stopping, pausing, repeating, playing, pausing, trying to copy the person's speech, and also noticing when there's connected speech and when you get all different sounds appearing and the words connect together in English. It's very, very useful.
Some teachers call this method shadow reading.
I've heard that. Yes, I've heard that expression.
Shadow reading, well, you can do it with the person, but you can also do it with the book itself. It's just repeating what the book just said. You hear the sentence and you repeat. And it's shadow, like una sombra, like you follow what they're doing. Just imitate. It's like what children do. Children do this without even thinking.
You can go to watch Boris Johnson on YouTube and read the text and try and speak like Boris Johnson, or Brad Pitt or anybody.
Okay,
Just copy their speech.
I did this. I was watching Boris Johnson because I like his accent. This accent is very nice. I am not giving any opinion about the politician, just about the English. And
it's a very public school accent. It's very Cambridge, Oxford public school.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It sounds very nice. Is it like Queen English?
It's called RP, received
RP.
pronunciation.
That's what I thought. This is what I thought, RP. Yeah.
And years ago, before people started caring about diversity and including different accents on platforms like the BBC, for example, people thought that most people in the UK spoke like the Queen or like Boris Johnson. It's only about 3% of everybody in the United Kingdom who speaks like Boris Johnson. But it's a very popular accent because they tend to be in the media and they have very high positions in government and society. So we hear their accent a lot, but it's 3% of the population only.
Oh, I think I wanted to say here, I think Rafa doesn't agree with me. He doesn't. He said nice. I think it's a very nice accent. Sorry, but I love speaking accent.
I agree with Rafa. I'm sorry.
You don't like it because it's too posh. You find it too posh.
It represents the higher class in the UK, and I don't want to go into politics, but it's not. I don't really. I don't like to judge people when they speak like that. And what's interesting is I have friends who have been to public schools. Remember, public school in the UK means private school. The public schools are the expensive schools like Eton and Cambridge, and the people I know who speak like that and have had that education do not like their accent. They don't like speaking like that. Yeah. And it's really strange to me. It's really curious that their parents spend lots of money on this fantastic education and they don't like the accent that they have from their school.
Rafa says, I prefer Craig's. Craig is spelled C-R-A-I-G. Okay, not
Thank
Greg.
you. Thank you, Rafa.
And I also agree. I also like his accent a lot. So I also agree with that. And Martha, she's giving us a suggestion here. Bilingual app is a good app for reading, no? Listening about a lot of topics, no? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's another one that Brainline also is quite good for listening, more than for reading. Brainline. Uh-huh. Okay, let's see. Let me see where we were. We were in read aloud.
Verb tenses.
Okay, master verb tenses. This for me is number one. I should have put the first one. I really believe that when you start speaking, you need verbs all the time. And this is not that I believe it. It's just a fact. So what happens? Think about it in your own language. When you speak your own language, you are not doubting about the verb tenses. You're not thinking, should I use the conditional or should I use the past? You just say it. So thinking about this idea that you completely master your tenses in your own language is the same for English. As a second language, one of the first things you should do is try to master the verb tenses. When I use the past, when I use the future, when I use the conditionals, and the right person, he has a car, no, he have a car, or the past tense, I don't know, anything that has to do with verb tenses. The more you master the verb tenses, the more fluency you get. Because it's basic, it's like the basic structure of any sentence you have has a verb. So that's it. There's nothing else I can say. Very clear. Okay?
I'll add one thing to that, Monica, and I absolutely agree, but also focus on using contractions that will make you sound more fluent. So instead of saying, oh, I think I will go to the beach, I think I'll go. So I'll. try to use those contractions. That will improve your fluency as well. I am feeling hungry. I'm feeling hungry. All of those contractions that you've probably studied in books and in your English class, try to use those when you're speaking and not use the full form of the auxiliary verb. That will make you sound more fluent also.
But I would say there's also something that you get when you start at the B1 level, no? B1, B2, because when you have a lower level, and this is, well, probably they're not A2 students now listening to this or watching this, but when you have a lower level, usually it's not very easy for the students to make those constructions. They find it very hard. So, okay. So that I think is clear. Let's go with practice. Connected speech. That's also my favorite because you have a lot of this connected speech. First of all, what is connected speech? And I would let Craig explain this. What is connected speech?
Well, in English, the sounds of English change very often when they are connected together. So let me give you an example, because there are many different examples of connected speech. One example would be a lot of people, or a lot of soup, or a lot of it, let's say. So we've got a lot of it. We've got 4 words there. A lot of it. Native speakers don't usually pronounce these words separately, because what happens is when you have a consonant followed by a vowel, those sounds join together. So a lot of. Not only does the of change to of, so that vowel sound changes, but those 2 sounds join together. So we don't say a lot of, we say a lot of. And because of finishes with another consonant, then you have a vowel, it, that also joins together. So what native speakers say is a lot of it, a lot of it. And that's an example of connected speech. And that's why listening sometimes in English is so difficult, because these sounds merge together and come together. I'll give you one more example, the expression law and order. Law and order, when you say it normally, has an intrusive R sound. Law and order, law and order. So when a native speaker says law and order, it's law and order, because there's an intrusive R sound that gets put in the middle. And that's another example of connected speech. So it's good to be aware of that. It's not necessary to copy it exactly. It's more really effective to know about it when you're listening, because you have to break down what you're hearing and decode it into the words so that you understand what someone's saying to you. But it will improve your fluency if you start to use some of those connected speech sounds.
I would like to mention another example that is it comes up very frequently, is it after any verb. When you put, for example, do it, clean it. It's not clean it, clean it. So
that's that consonant vowel sound again. Yeah.
Yes. So this is one very common one, and just pay attention. Start by paying attention to that, because this is one of the easiest one to identify. Every time there is a verb and there is it after it, it goes together. It's not separated. So the sound is always eat it, for example. Why don't you eat it? Cómetelo. Yeah? This lo is always together with the verb. And first of all, I would say yes. The first step is just to try to understand English. The second step is to try to reproduce these sounds, because many times connected speech is only so that you understand it. You do enough listening so that you can understand that they are putting together the words. Then later you can try to imitate those sounds. But at the beginning, it becomes quite difficult. So I don't want to disencourage anybody, because it's difficult. It's quite difficult to try to say that exactly the way native speakers say it. But you at least have to try to understand it. Okay, understand it. That's why Craig said it very clearly. You cannot understand native speakers many times because of connected speech.
And by the way, if you're thinking, well, that's really unfair. First, you throw phrasal verbs at us, and then you throw this connected speech. How are we going to learn it? Well, in Spanish, it also exists because many people don't say cortado, they say cortao. They don't say coñado, they say coñao. I hear that many times here in Valencia. So there are some sounds, because people are lazy, and it's really laziness and wanting to get the message across and communicate quickly. So we're losing sounds and we're getting other sounds coming in as we're speaking. So it's a really interesting area to study. And as we said before, a good way to do it is to listen and read and notice when those sounds are coming in and how a native speaker is saying those words, and read them on the page. And then you can make that connection and notice the connected speech.
Well, in your own language, you never notice that because you have learned your own language by listening, not writing and filling in the blank space. And that's one of the main problems that many people, at least my students, have been learning English just filling in blank spaces. That's not the way you learn a language. The way you learn a language is speaking and listening, and then you can do exercises. But
there's a message. Sorry. Now, I just wanted to mention that there's a message from Marta. Well, let's look at Rafa's first. It's awful for me to reproduce some sounds because I'm from Andalusia. See, Andalusia is another example. In Andalusia, sometimes the sounds in Spanish you drop at the end of words.
The words. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And this happens in English in certain accents. Let's see, Scottish accents, for example, is absolutely awful. And you were saying Marta.
Marta's visually impaired, so she needs more listening. I don't know, Marta. I don't know exactly what accessibility is available on mobile phones, but I know it's been getting a lot better. So if you use your mobile phone or your computer and you're speaking to it, you can change that to English to practice your English. And you can work on your pronunciation by speaking to your device in English. When you want to type an email, use words to voice to text. Google has very good voice to text for dictating emails and that kind of thing. So there are lots of accessibility functions now in mobile phones, for example. So you can use the microphone and practice your speaking with your device. And then it will read it. It will read it back to you, so you'll know if you've pronounced the words correctly.
Oh, that's very cool. There's Gemma says in Spanish, "Pati." Pati. Yeah, and we don't even notice. You don't even notice that you say that, and in the same way, Craig doesn't notice you don't even notice when you're using connected speech.
No. Especially when I'm with my family, my accent changes a little. It goes back to more of a broad London relaxed accent when I'm speaking to my family. So we use a lot of connected speech. And sometimes when you're speaking to someone from the UK or from anywhere who's a native speaker, they won't necessarily slow down and avoid connected speech for your benefit. They might not be sympathetic to you as a language learner. So you really need to be aware of this and to study this so that you can understand what people are saying to you.
Okay, now the next one. Listen and repeat everyday sentences. By everyday sentences, I would like to translate this word in this context. It means cotidiano. No significa cada día, sino cotidiano. Everyday sentences. So it means, for example, I get up at 7 o'clock. I go to work at 8 o'clock. I have breakfast at 9. I talk to my partner at 12. We have lunch together. All these sentences that are part of your life are one very good tool that can help you to gain fluency because it's connected with your own experiences. And whenever something is connected with your experience, it's easier to learn because you don't have to remember. There's no effort in remembering, you know? So I often have my students practice this. Like, what time did you get up? Do you usually make your bed? You don't make your bed. What did you have for breakfast? I had this for breakfast because eventually what we all do is to repeat sentences. We repeat sentences in different contexts. And some of them are very common sentences, and some of them are very complex sentences. But you start by the little sentences that you say at home, and like children do when they're at home with their mother. Do you want a sandwich? No. They hear the mother and they repeat. They hear the father, they repeat. They put on the TV. Now TV is something very old and nobody does that, but the phone or whatever. You hear it somewhere, somebody else saying the same word. You go to school, you hear your teacher, they say some sentences, and you end up repeating all those sentences without even being aware. You'd learn that so easily because it's in your everyday life. So it's a very easy thing to do. It's just to learn sentences that you repeat every day. Say in the same way you do in Spanish. No? Anything else? Any feedback about this?
No, nothing to add to that. I agree 100%. Just one comment that Rafa's made. He says he remembers the day when he was trying to pronounce wood and his English teacher is still laughing. And I've heard Spanish speakers sometimes have problems with that word. Yeah. And I don't know why, but with my experience, some Spanish speakers try to introduce a g sound at the beginning, like good. It sounds like good to me sometimes. Instead of using the mouth and the lips to just do w, they're coming from the throat, la garganta, and they're saying wood. And I think maybe that was Rafa's problem.
No, but it's very simple. At least I see it all the time. It's because we don't have that sound in Spanish.
What?
It doesn't exist. No.
Huelga? So, huelga.
Like, but this is like a U, actually.
But the sounds are the same. Huelga. It's una huelga.
But I don't know. I don't know if people can relate huelga to wood. But I just give the tip you just gave. I say it's like giving a kiss.
From the mouth.
Yes. And the vocal cords should not vibrate because in g, you have here a movement, no? G. But this is not wood. It's wood. It's in the upper part of the mouth.
By the way, Rafa, wood, the conditional wood that you've written there is exactly the same pronunciation as wood madera.
Yes.
W-O-O-D, exactly the same pronunciation.
Because the L has no sound, really.
Gemma's saying that that's the way she started to learn to speak English at language school. Your example of simple sentences, particularly repeating daily routines. As you said, Monica, what did you have for breakfast? What time did you get up? That kind of thing.
Yeah, these two. That's a good name. Daily routines. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. So where are we? This is something for Craig. Yeah.
Yes, disfluencies. You may not have seen the word disfluency, and disfluencies are something that native speakers also do as well as language learners, and it can cause problems. A disfluency can be something like saying between every word. And some native speakers do this a lot. It's also repeating words at the beginning of the sentence. For example, so I just repeated for example. Or it could be repeating a syllable, disfluency, repeating the same syllable twice. So anything that's not fluent when you're speaking is a disfluency. And if you listen to people on the radio, on the BBC, speaking English, on CNN, newscasters, TV presenters, they don't do that. They speak pretty much like I'm speaking now, without these disfluencies, because they practice, because they train themselves, because they go to journalism school. So I'm not suggesting you do that, but what is a problem with many language learners is they overuse disfluencies. It's too many it's too many and it's natural because you're thinking of vocabulary. Your brain is trying to be at the same speed as your mouth. And what you need to do is record your voice. And instead of saying, just leave silence, leave a pause, absolute silence, and practice on your phone recording your voice without those disfluencies. And that will gradually improve your fluency. Use the record function on your mobile phone, record your voice. And when you feel like you're going to say, just leave a pause of silence.
Yeah, this is I think is a very good tip, because I noticed that it's very difficult to get rid of these disfluencies, because we all have, and also in Spanish, like you were saying, we all have
native speakers do it also. Absolutely.
Fillers, these muletillas, like like me entiendes, or in English, okay, or you know is a very popular one.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you. I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. That's another one. You know, which in Spanish, sabes. My neighbor used to say sabes every sentence.
Yeah, and
voy a hacer la compra, sabes?
Yeah,
it's a disfluency. You know, or like. In American English, people overuse like. There's no problem with disfluencies if you don't overuse them. If you use them in moderation, it sounds fine. But if you use them too much, it's really annoying, and you notice it when you're listening.
And also, but
it's a pet peeve of mine. It's something that I care very much about.
No, but it's also for me, it gives an idea that the fluencies give an idea that you are not too clever sometimes, or that you are.
No, I disagree. No? If you listen to really, really clever people like scientists and doctors, they have a lot of disfluencies because their brain and their mouths are not in synchronization. Maybe their brain is going too quickly and their mouth can't speak at the same speed. There's something in a very, very clever person's brain that gives them disfluencies as well. It's really interesting. So I don't think it's not connected to intelligence.
No. But I don't agree, because it depends on the context. If you're a scientist and you're speaking to other scientists and you're speaking to students, it doesn't really matter, because you're talking about a subject that you all love and that's it. But when you go into public speaking, and many people here, the students have to do some kind of public speaking, or speak at an interview, or speak at or teach something in English, or do a presentation, for example. If you start with these fillers and disfluency, it doesn't sound right. Just doesn't sound right. Imagine you had the president of the government, apart from other things, doing other things, is speaking like that. That's why I said that it gives you the impression that it's not a very clever person. And depending on the context, of course, depending on the context. But
by the way, Boris Johnson has a lot of disfluencies. If you listen to Boris Johnson,
I just heard one speech with the pandemic, and that's it. I have not listened to all the things he says, but if you say it so, it must be true. So it sounds really bad if you have the influences and you're in public speaking, okay? Yes. And that's why, for me, I think it's very important for someone who is starting to speak English to be careful with this, because it gives the impression that your English is poorer than it really is, just because you go all the time.
Yep, and it can get quite annoying. You really notice it sometimes on the news when they're interviewing people in the street with a microphone,
Yes.
and the difference between the interviewer and the way the person in the street answers is you can really notice their disfluencies. And when you watch a TED talk, a proper professional presentation, it's very, very unusual that they speak with disfluencies.
No, they don't.
Because as Monica said, they've trained and they're professional speakers usually. Yeah.
So it's a very important tip, I think, what you just mentioned there. And then the next one is, this is for you, Craig.
Sing along with songs on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube every day, actually, on the Facebook group of Mansion Inglés, we publish, and on Twitter, we publish a song with the lyrics. The lyrics are what's lyrics in Spanish? Las letras.
La letra.
Yeah. So it's fun, and it's also good to practice your favorite songs. Search for them on YouTube, and then type the word lyrics, Lyrics, so that you get the lyrics on the bottom of the screen or on the screen, and you can sing along with the song. And that's also good for your fluency. And also be aware, try to notice the connected speech also in those songs.
If you like music and if you like to sing, of course, I think this is an excellent tip. Okay, but only if you don't like music, it's not a good idea. But
who doesn't like music?
No, some people don't like.
Some people don't. Yeah.
And this is Marta. I thought it was funny. I don't want to get into politics. Don't pull my tongue. In Spanish we say no me tires de la lengua, because there is. I don't know. Trump says a lot of things, but I have not noticed anything about disfluencies. No, I don't think so.
You need to have a wide vocabulary to have.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that Craig doesn't want to make any comments about Trump.
About politics, not really. No, I'm getting quite bored with it, to be honest.
Yeah, please keep away from politics. Okay.
So Gemma says that she really likes music. Do you do this, Gemma? Do you sing along with your favorite songs in English? Marta does. She says, yes, I do that.
Yeah.
And Rafa says that it's common, the muletillas in Spanish, English, or whatever. Yeah, it is common. It's very, very common. And it's only a problem, Rafa, when it's too much. And some people learning a second language use it as a crutch. They use or like these words while they're thinking of vocabulary. It's better to have silence.
This is a very good idea. Be proactive.
Yes, I was watching a friend of mine on Instagram. I can't remember his handle. His name is Ben, and he was speaking about being proactive. I really liked his idea of stressing to be proactive, and a lot of the ideas that Monica and I have given you on improving fluency means you have to be proactive. You have to go out there and do something. So you go out there and you look for songs on YouTube, for example. But if you want to be more proactive, why don't you search for a speaking group and practice your fluency through video conferencing software like Zoom or Skype? Now, there are places you can go on Facebook, for example, or on web pages to join a group, or you could start one yourself. You could start one by joining a forum or joining a Facebook group where there are learners of English, and say, hey, next Tuesday, I'm going to have a Zoom conversation to speak English. Come and join, come and speak, and we'll speak together. So you can get together with other language learners, try to make sure they're more or less at your level, and have a chat about something. You can speak about politics if you like. You can speak about Trump. You can speak about problems you're having with learning English, any subject you like, and use Zoom or Skype to do that. It's a really good way to practice your fluency with other language learners and maybe make some friends on the internet.
Yeah. This is an excuse, no? As an excuse, you make friends.
Yeah.
And trying to practice. Yeah. Proactive. I like that idea of being proactive, because whenever you're proactive, you always get more rewards. You always get more rewards. If you just sit there and wait for the things to happen, doesn't work that way.
Nope.
You need to really work on it and make an effort for being more fluent. It doesn't just happen. I don't know. There are more comments about Trump. I don't know. People like the idea of Trump because it's funny. The situation is quite funny. But Craig refuses to make any comment about politics because it's quite it's a topic that is quite
divisive.
And it gets confrontation. It gets a lot of confrontation and not good always. Not always good. Let's see. Next one. This is very important. This is very, very important.
You take it then, Monica. What do you think about making mistakes?
Yes, because things are not nice. You just make mistakes, and it happens all the time. And I'm going to put as an example my own husband. My husband, when he came to Spain, he didn't know a word of Spanish. Not a word. And he was so brave. I always admired him because of this. He was not shy at all. So what he did, I remember one day, I think I told this story. Did I tell this story? That we went to buy.
I don't think so, no.
Well, we went to buy, we wanted to buy, we were with some groups of friends in the street, and it was very hot. I remember it was in the summer, and we wanted to buy some ice cream. And he goes and says, I'll go and get it. And I said, hey, you'll go and get it? You don't even speak one word. But he was very brave. And he went, and I remember it was one of these places like a kiosk where they have a stale in the summer and they sell these lollipops. No? And I remember we asked him, please ask for these lollipops, lemon lollipops, I remember. And he didn't know the word in Spanish to ask for this. So he looked at a drawing that was in this board they have with all.
He pointed.
No, he just read that it was Popeye. Popeye. There was a drawing of Popeye, the Popeye, but he didn't know the name in Spanish. So he said to the guy, "I want, quiero un Popeye de lemono." And they went like this and started looking at me like saying, "What did he say?" He didn't care. He didn't care. And another time, we went to the restaurant. We ordered the food. And he goes and says to the waiter, "I would like un merluzo." He just uses the gender. Instead of saying masculine, he uses feminine or masculine. He doesn't care. And if there is a problem, he says un merluzo. So no una merluza, but un merluzo. And the waiter, I remember the waiter was about to crack up because he thought it was very funny. No, he understood, but it was a mistake, of course. And this is the way he learned. He just was making one mistake after another mistake after another mistake, but eventually we were speaking very fluently because he didn't really care. He didn't give a damn about it. It's just like, I am not like that. I am very, I'm very prudent. I don't want to make mistakes, but I have learned with him that this is not very good, that you have to make mistakes at the beginning when you learn a language. And I remember in France last summer, I had to go and I forgot a hat that I was wearing in a restaurant. And we were driving and I thought, I forgot the hat. And most people in villages in France, they don't speak any English. So you have to speak French. And I don't know any French. I know very basic French. And my husband and my son, they speak much better French than I do. But they didn't want to help me. So I decided to go in there and I just asked. And I was like repeating this sentence. I was like, chapeau, je suis obligé. I was like this. And I said, I did it only because I thought my husband always did this. He doesn't really care. He says, if the other one doesn't, the listener doesn't understand me, it's his problem. I am just going to say it. That's why he can speak many languages, because he's not afraid of making mistakes. That's it.
Exactly.
Later, you have to try to correct them. But at the beginning, you just say them, and that's it. When I learned the science language...
That's very true. And I think now that we've been speaking for nearly an hour about practicing fluency, I think you should come in live with us and practice speaking English for the last 5 or 10 minutes and have some practice in English. So Monica's going to show you now the link that you need to put in the browser.
Everybody wants to join us and try to... There it is. Okay, there. That's the link. If you use that link,
it's in the chat room, the StreamYard. It works better on Google Chrome, but you should be able to use it also with a mobile phone. And come in and say hello, Rafa, Marta, Fatima, Gemma. Come and say hi. And we've got some questions for you if you don't know what to say when you come in. What's your name? Where are you from? Why are you learning English? And what's the most difficult thing for you about learning English? So that will get you started. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what problems you're having with English and why you want to improve your English. And come and practice your fluency with us. We've got a few minutes left.
I don't know. Well, I suppose I'm the one that has to let them in, but I don't know
if someone comes in, Monica, you'll see next to me, where you can see me at the bottom under your screen, under your window. You'll see someone. As I tried to come in at the beginning, you'll see somebody try to come in, and exactly the same. You click accept.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not seeing anybody. I'm not. There's nobody. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Don't be shy. Come and practice. Come and practice your speaking. We promise to be gentle with you.
Yeah. Yes.
What was Rafa's comment? When I learned the sign language, I remember. You know sign language, Rafa. That's interesting. If you don't know a sign or a word, explain the concept. Absolutely, Rafa. I agree. And that's why it's a good idea to learn expressions in English to describe things. For example, you want a tin opener, but you don't know how to say tin opener in English. So you can say, can I have the thing that you use to open tins? The thing that you use for is a really good way to explain a word that you don't know. Tin opener is hable latas. So if you don't know the word, try to describe it in easy English, as Rafa's saying. Describe the concept, describe the word with simple words, and you can get the message across to the listener.
Then Fatima says, I care, but because I said nobody cares. I care, but I cannot open it on the mobile phone.
Do you have the Google Chrome browser on your phone, Fatima? Is it Google Chrome? It works okay. Just copy and paste that link into your mobile phone, and you should be able to connect.
No,
so try that.
I think we have technical issues here. It's not really that.
Possibly.
Because it didn't. I love languages, not improving my French level. Well, Rafa is saying, yeah.
Très bien, très bien.
This is.
Moi aussi.
Yeah, moi aussi. Okay, so I don't know. Nobody is coming in. Nobody can come in. It's too difficult. So we have to say goodbye then.
We have to say, if nobody's coming in to say hello, we have to say goodbye. But there's one thing I'd like to say before we go, and that's something I said at the beginning, that everybody speaks at a different speed, or we say pace in English. We speak at different paces. And my co-host on the podcast, Reza, and I spoke about this recently in a podcast. We speak at different speeds, and that's based on the education, our family background, the way we were brought up. So I'm sure in Spanish, you speak at different paces. And I remember speaking to very, very fast, fluent Spanish speaker. Oh, we have someone joining us.
Rafa, finally. Yeah, he said he had the link, and it was possible. So that he had to write by letter.
There's an echo.
Yeah. Rafa? There's not a good connection.
Is that Rafa or Fatima?
No, it's Rafa.
It's very dark.
Let me see. Wait, there.
You're very dark.
But you unmute.
Can you hear us?
I'm trying to. Can unmute your guests because they chose to mute themselves. You don't, Rafa. In order for us to hear you, you have to unmute your microphone. Unmute. Because you have it. There's a line.
Hi.
There. Rafa.
Hi. We can hear you. Welcome.
Welcome. Oi.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Rafa?
I'm from Córdoba.
Okay.
My hair. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Don't worry, mine's the same. It's the coronavirus hair.
Yeah.
Okay, nice to have you here.
Sorry?
Nice to have you.
Oh,
It's
nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you. But I have a problem to pronounce. Remember, I'm from Andalusia, and well, I don't use the S or whatever.
Yeah.
The muletilla.
Yeah.
You know. Hey, Rafa, you said that you. There's an echo because you haven't got the earphone. You said that you can use sign language.
Yeah, Spanish sign language.
Why did you learn that? Someone in your family needs it?
No, I studied sign language because I remember when I was a child, I tried to. Well, I don't know. I thought that I have to communicate with the deaf people, and well. For me, was like how do you say reto?
A challenge.
A challenge because I had an uncle, a deaf. He was uncle. He was deaf, and well, I wanted to communicate because he's from the society, whatever, no, and well,
yeah.
And I decided to study the sign language here in Córdoba, English, and now I'm improving my French level.
That's interesting. And why are you working on your English? Do you need English for your job?
Yes, because I am tourist guide here in the mosque. And well,
you have the phone connected. It comes from the
Sorry?
I think the echo is because at the same time. So you're. Oh no. This is.
I'm connected by my phone. Yeah.
Because it's echo. When you enter the radio.
I
don't know. At least.
Well, I am a tourist guide here in Córdoba. For me, the languages are basic, and I have many anecdotes. Anecdote with my customer. I remember a family from Texas, and for me, it was impossible to understand them because it's a horrible, awful accent. And Scottish, I remember a guy from Scotland. And for me, it's very, well, it's important when this tip I gave you, if you don't know any word in English or whatever, you have to explain. For me, it's, for example, when I explaining the history here in Córdoba, because it's like a specific it's like a specific words, it's for example when I have to explain the patios here in Córdoba. The patios is very important. I know patio is a noun word, but I have to explain the concept because it's very well. For us, it's very important, the patio, no? But when the people don't know what is a patio, you have to explain the concept, and you say courtyard, courtyard, and well,
Córdoba is one of my favorite Spanish cities.
Yeah.
How is the coronavirus situation affecting your job as a tourist guide?
Well, I'm ERTE.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
It's impossible. Work now. And for example, today.
Is it a full ERTE or just partial?
Sorry.
Is it a full ERTE or a part of an ERTE?
No. Full ERTE from March. From today, the mosque is closed until we don't know. And and here in Andalusia we are the lockdown is the confinement.
Yes.
The lockdown. Yeah, the lockdown is very hard. No, it's impossible to get out or to come in here because it's forbidden to go out from your city, from your town, whatever.
Yeah.
But for us, coronavirus crisis is
a disaster.
The tourist industry is really badly hit. But now you have more time to practice your English and your French.
Yes, tomorrow I have to go to a French classroom.
Très bien.
Yeah, but I'm improving my languages, no, because you have to do anything, no, something.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's really nice to meet you, Rafa. Thanks for coming in and being the first person.
Yes.
To jump in.
Taking the effort. Thank you, because it was typing all the
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
And now, thank you to Rafa. We know it works. We know we can bring people in who want us to chat. I think the reason we were hearing that bad echo was because Rafa wasn't using earphones, because as we were speaking, I think the sound was coming out of his phone and then going back into the phone and back to us, and there was an echo. Yeah,
that's what I said. I thought there was something like in the radio. When you call the radio, they have the same problem. They say, turn off the radio.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same. That was nice.
Thank you very much, Marta, Gemma, and also
Fatima,
that are very loyal, and
Rafa,
that he dared to come in, and it worked. Finally, it worked, and it's not so easy. Okay, so next time you're going to be with Lynn. And
next Wednesday with Lynn. We don't know the topic yet, but we'll let you know on Facebook and Twitter. And hopefully, Monica, in 2 weeks, will be back for another Facebook Live.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.